Hi, guys. This is Daniel Alexander Cannon here on the Supernatural Show with, of course, my co host Shannon with Soul 7. And we also have a special guest today. Ray is with us. He's been on here, actually twice. He was with Shannon during the tour and the talk of the Tudor House. And he was also here once before and told one of the supernatural stories that has happened to him in his life. And he's going to be going into a couple of other stories here in just a little bit. But first, we're going to ultimately be we're going to take a look at something you guys are going to find very interesting, which is the Sistine Chapel, at the Vatican. And you know how we've talked about on here, we've talked about the hairy people, like Esau was in the Bible and a few other characters in the Bible and some of the ones that were considered to be mighty men and giants. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at something that me and Shannon ran across the other day. And when we were doing the Beyond the Veil Bible study event, which I'll show you some information on that here in just a minute. But we were studying Nimrod and why his name is what it is. And of course, you get off into a bunch of other rabbit holes looking at things. And we ended up in the Sistine Chapel because I remembered that they had the hairy men shown in the Sistine Chapel that Michelangelo painted in the back end of the chapel in the area that's considered to be the Holy of Holies of the chapel. And right behind the crucifix that sits in the chapel, there is a cave that you can see, and we're going to show you some images of it. But strangely, this cave is apparently the only thing left out of a 3D rendering that was produced, where somebody went in and took all the photographs of the entire place inside, and then they stitched them together into a 3D imagery, which you're going to see here in just a minute. But first, before we get into all that, let's check in with Shannon and see what in the supernatural is going on.
Hello, guys. I had a lot of fun looking through lots of pictures of the Sistine Chapel and came upon some very interesting evidence to show, as Daniel had mentioned, that the hairy people that we endearingly call Sasquatch or Sabe seems to be right there. And we did find it quite odd that it wasn't in the 3D rendering. So take that for what you will. But other than that, just getting prepared for Thanksgiving and having a good old time here with Ray. We're going to do some work on a script here today. It'll be a lot of fun. So.
Yeah, we're also going to talk about that a little bit too, which is the script that actually Ray is writing for either a movie or miniseries that he's hoping to get produced. And we're going to be discussing that, or Ray's going to be discussing it mainly because he's the one that's involved with it. And he also is potentially, I hear, maybe going to have Ernest, what's his last name?
Ernie Hudson. He was the Ghostbusters.
Yeah, he's probably most well known from the Ghostbusters, but has been in probably 50 or 100 other movies as well. Not like we're promoting Hollywood in any way, shape, or form. However, Ray, what he's working on is a script that is based on truth and reality, and from what I understand, some of his experiences in his life, and on a subject matter that we're not going to be able to talk a ton about the subject matter too much on here today because of specifically YouTube has rules about that subject matter and it getting your videos and sometimes your channel go poof. So we're going to have to be careful around that, but we're going to be talking about the script and what's going to be going on and how Shannon's going to be involved and some other things like that as well. And but first, let's say hi to Ray for just a second, and then we're going to show the Sistine Chapel and the images we're talking about with the hairy people in one image and missing in another image. Hello, Ray?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sitting here listening, and I wasn't really paying attention. So, hi to your audience. Apologize for that. Didn't get much sleep last night because my cat. She wanted my attention. So, a little bit on I call it Manacle Hunt. It's a script I wrote, and basically, it's fictional characters with truth to the stories. So if one of the networks or whoever picks it up, you have the name. It's actually registered now. So I've been talking to Ernie Hudson. He also produces, and it will be very interesting topics, and there'll be truth to the stories. I've had on my mom's side, they were in the motion picture business, and on my dad's side, they were in politics. So I've seen a lot of stuff. And some of you know I used to do investigation work, and had a lot of experiences. I do have a relationship with Christ Jesus, and I've actually seen angels. I've seen a lot of different things. When you're out there, working in dangerous territory, and you're working to the good, you see things.
Yeah, Shannon, does Ray reminds me of another one of our favorite people, which is Dan.
Dan, which I know they want to talk at some point.
Yeah, I'd say it reminds me of him, well, in multiple ways, actually, but one way is that the number and level of supernatural experiences he's had in his life, and also that Dan, Dan called me this morning and I couldn't even answer because it will be an hour conversation if you get on the phone with Dan, which is fine because I love talking to Dan, but I couldn't do it this morning, so I had to text him and say I can't talk right now, but anyways, yeah, we're going to get into all that with Ray and such. But what we're going to do first, guys, I want to show you some interesting imagery of the Sistine Chapel. Now, what you're looking at here, guys, this is the 3D rendering, okay, of the chapel, okay, that I was referring to. Where what they have to do is you have to go in and take a ton of photos of inside. As a matter of fact, it'll probably tell us how many photos. Let's take a look here. Whoops, didn't mean to do that. Let's go down here and look and see if it says anything about it. Well, not really. It just says it was published 7 years ago. Okay, so not really a lot of information there. Well, some over here on the right. Let's see. It says, looks like probably about maybe 14 photos or something like that. But anyways, they take them and they stitch them all together and put them on what you would call a frame, and it allows them to build this virtual environment. So I happen to know that down here at the bottom of the Michelangelo painting here at the back, in which I understand I think he painted most everything in here, but down here at the back, right here, you can see, let's kind of look and see what we see here. We see of course some figurines, we'll just call it, up here above and some up in the clouds, and down here on the ground level you see grass here and a little stream or something running through here. And there's a man in a boat with a few other people in the boat. And there's people falling out of the boat and falling down all over here. Kind of keep this imagery in your mind and remember what you see here. So this boat coming through on this blue water here. And then right behind the cross, right behind the crucifix that supposedly is an image of Christ on the cross, right here. Right behind it, you can see that all you see is grass, right? And over to the left over here, you see these people, they're kind of reclining back. Most of them are like reclining backwards or either hanging upside down. It's like kind of a lot of gruesome stuff going on here. But you can see, let me zoom in just a little bit more. See, this is all just grass and water and a man in a boat right here. And here's the grass and everything, right? Now, Shannon and I were looking at this, and there's a million things to be said about this chapel and a million things to be said about the Vatican. I'm aware of the truth about the Vatican and aware of a lot of the truths, but me and Shannon and I found it very interesting or very strange. You know, if we started doing some searching and looking at different photos, and of course, I had memory of, and let me pull it up here. I had memory of this. Now there is the crucifix. This is the same image. It's just been zoomed in and captured, okay, so that we could see what was there on a regular image. You can see right behind the crucifix, and there's your grass, right? And your man in the boat over here, right? But the thing is that what is in most of the photos out there, you can see hairy people in this cave that's right here. And the cave itself in this image is positioned directly in front of what you would assume to be one of the most focal points of the entire image, which is the crucifix and the image of Christ, right? So one question is why are these images of these beings right behind the crucifix in what I would call the shoal or a cave or something like that? I wonder why they're depicted as being in here, and there's at least two depicted here. You can see one, he's standing up and he's leaning over. His legs are here. He's kind of squatting. He's got his arm on his left thigh and his right arm on his right knee almost right here. And then there's another one you can see right in the background, and he looks like he's looking upward, and he has his teeth showing. He's like, "Rah," And I can't see, of course, what's behind this candlestick here, the face of the other one. But you can see that they're very, very human-like. Okay, there's not a bunch of other images of gorillas and animals and other stuff in this painting, and the placement of it being right behind here, I find fascinating. So I wonder what y'all guys think out there, the viewers, what you think is going on here. Now, personally, I think it's linked to something that's been omitted from the Catholic Bible, which is they were the ones that canonized the books that are in the Bible, which there are 66, interestingly enough, of course. But yet in the Ethiopian Bible, there are 88. In the Ethiopian Bible, it has all the normal books that the 66 has, but then it has those additional books to make it a total of 88. And I think this has to do with, you could relate it to Esau and Jacob, and that Esau, he came out first and he was supposed to have dominion, but yet he was the big hairy one and he lost his dominion to his brother, his birthright to his brother, which was Jacob, which was the smooth-skinned child that came out. And they said when he was born, when Esau was born, they were, I can't remember the exact word they used. I don't have it pulled up here, but they were very kind of like shocked. Like, holy smokes, look at this child. He's covered in hair. And then he grew up to be a mighty hunter, a big man that maybe could even carry a lion under his arm, a full-grown lion like a kitten or a cat. And I think it has to do with something missing in our Bible, to be honest with you. I think that, well, the Bible says that when Esau and Jacob were born, that they were to be the head of two nations, that Esau was going to be the head or the father or the beginning seed of one nation, and that Jacob was going to be the head, the seed of another nation. Now, there's pretty obvious meaning there that these hairy people, they were either all killed or they still exist today. And I happen to know that they still exist today. And they live mostly in the woods all around our country and literally most places all around the world. And I just find that story fascinating. And now that I've hogged up all that mic time, Shannon, what are your thoughts?
Well, I am in agreement with you, and of course, I know most people are aware that the Vatican holds the largest, most extensive library that is hidden to the public, and I do find it quite fascinating that it's obviously there in the actual painting in the Sistine Chapel, but when the 3D rendering came out to the public in that manner, it completely hides the fact that that is even part of that painting, which just kind of brings out, more questions. And what else are there?
Makes you think of the word conspiracy all of a sudden, don't it? Somehow, some way, because they removed the image here. It's gone.
Mm-hmm.
So who did that and why? And is it still in the chapel, or do we have some kind of Mandela thing going on here?
Well, there is the one antique drawing that I sent you that shows too how far back that particular part was in there. So it's been there more than likely since obviously the beginning. And I'm not sure if it's been taken out because a lot of these photos that we went through on Getty Images still show that it exists. But
Now, this image, you can see three.
Right.
Notice, Shannon, there's three here in this image.
Mm-hmm. And I find it interesting that all the appendages on the altar is covering up the details in that particular part of the painting. And again, this is telling you that you can't trust a lot of the things that get put up on the internet and the new technology that they're putting up there, because there are things that are being omitted to the public that they don't want you to know or see. So say 10, 15 years from now, when someone looks these things up, they're going to automatically go to something along like this with the 3D image and really believe this is what it is. There must not be anything else, and take that for face value. But really, it's hiding truths that they don't want us to know.
I can almost look at this image here and see almost what looks like repeated loops right here.
Mm-hmm.
And that to me would say somebody use some kind of a tool, because you can see another one right down here. Use some kind of a tool, and they went in and they edited, of course, this image, and they used a copy of what's called basically, when you're like in Photoshop and stuff, you can take an image and you can take a copy of a little spot, and then you can just dab and paint over what's there. So it's like they took like little piece of the picture there, and then they just covered over it for some reason. And let me pull this other image back up real quick.
And this brings me to things along the lines of what are we really looking at when we're looking at photographs of outer space and things along those lines. We take for face value that NASA and all of these establishments are showing us the truth of what is really out there. But when you notice that, or when you know the truth behind how they do it, they're taking data from these telescopes, right? And they are making computer renditions of that. So are we really seeing the truth or something that they want us to see and believe as truth? And I just think it's kind of an important thing to think about in a lot of aspects, not just things that are being shown out with outer space, but now we're seeing that, paintings, artifacts, all those kinds of things are being altered, whether it's the Mandela effect or it's literally them covering up things or making up things for us to believe the narrative that they want to push. And also, the Vatican does have its own telescope. And what is it called? Lucifer.
Yep.
So
that's the acronym for it. Yeah, that's the acronym for it. Lucifer.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder why they would do something like that.
Can I say something about UFO?
A UFO?
About
Okay.
UFOs. I'm going to give sort of a simple technology how they operate, because I know people from NSA, NASA, CIA. You take two U-shaped magnets and you put them together and they draw to each other real quick. If you flip them, they repel each other.
All right.
So the basic idea,
the toroidal fields reverse. Yeah, they push apart.
Exactly. So the object it's a little bit more complicated than this, but the simplistic explanation for a UFO round disk is three tops, one inside the other. So you have the outer, you have this inner, and you have the center. And they turn opposite of one another with a magnetic field. That's why you'll see them sitting there, not going anywhere, because they have this magnetic field. And then they do the magnetic field opposite against each other. And of course, they're in control of it to direct the ship in any direction they want. Like,
right. Yeah.
So that's the simplistic.
I understand what you're saying, and yeah, you're actually correct. It's called a geo. What is it the airplanes use? A gyro. Yeah, like a gyro.
Gyroscope.
Yeah, like a gyroscope. That kind of thing. A gyro, not a gyro. A gyro.
But the complicated part of it is to keep the beings inside, where they're not smashed up against the wall. They go with the craft without, being killed.
Here's basically what you're talking about.
That's the trick. Yeah.
The thing. And if you have used the right materials and the right power behind it, it creates its own levitational space, is what it does. It no longer reacts to the toroidal field that our world is surrounded in. It creates its own space, very much just like a tornado in a way. A tornado, like a tornado, what it does is it spins, and it's spinning so fast, and the atmosphere around it is energized, and it will levitate trucks, anything, especially metal, like a train or truck, big trucks. People wonder how these trucks are floating around in the air, but they're not in the tornado. It's because of the levitation capability of a toroidal field, which is what Ray is talking about here. And a gyroscope is a good way to describe it. And this is also described in Ezekiel as Ezekiel's wheel. And this is the way that angels travel inside of a toroidal field like this, a wheel with inside of a wheel. Now, it's not exactly like this. Of course, this is a gyroscope. Theirs is all light, and there's nothing mechanical about it. And they travel within those toroidal fields like that. But yeah, exactly. I'm not.
So our government has the technology. I had somebody, I'm not going to name names, live with me for about a year. And that individual, we have ships. And
Oh yeah,
we have
I've
ships. So if you see a ship, is it them or is it us?
I've
That's the
seen.
question now.
I've seen a ship that was the shape of a triangle. It was as big as a football field from one corner to the other, and it was sitting about 200 feet above the tree tops, and the trees were say 100 feet tall. And I was out one night at about 10 p.m. It was dark. It was in the fall, about this time of the year, as a matter of fact. And I seen one. Well, first I didn't realize what it was. I just seen this light in the distance in the sky. And as I started getting closer, I could see that the lights were blinking, and there was 2 or 3 of the lights. And as I got closer, I started to realize this is something not normal. And then we happened to get lucky, and it wasn't moving very fast. And so we were able to catch up with it on the road that we were on and pull over, jump out, and I actually filmed a little bit of it. And it was dead silent, made no sound, big as a football field, sitting right in the sky. And
If it
and
makes you feel any better, I experienced the same thing. Except the ship actually had 2 prongs that came out, don't know why, with balls at the end of the prongs.
with balls, that's the problem.
Yeah. Just
I didn't. It was too dark to see a lot of detail. I could just tell it was there, and I could see it had a light flashing on each corner of the triangle. And I believe I've also seen a smaller version of one of those one night down at the beach, but I'm not positive. I know I've seen this one, the big one. And it seen me because I jumped out and started filming it with my camera, and it stopped. And it rotated 360 degrees, and then it just smooth as ever just started moving back off in the direction it came from. So I jumped back in the car and chased it. It was only going about 15 miles an hour. Obviously, it could go much faster, but it was only going about 15. And I chased it and went past it and got out in front of it, what I felt like was in front of it, and stopped at a store. And there was this big field with all the trees gone that I could see back towards it where it was coming from. And I was standing there watching, thinking, okay, it should be here any moment. And then all of a sudden, here it comes. I can see it. And it's coming straight at me. And I thought, oh, it's going to fly right over me. And it was freaking me out. And all of a sudden, it just, smoothest thing you ever seen, was just started rotating. No tilt, no nothing, just rotated slowly. And then all of a sudden, sailed off at a 90-degree angle from me. And, you know, my hand on the Bible, I seen it. And I did a video talking about it. I imagine some of the people here have heard me talk about it before and seen the video that I did a few years back when I seen that. So yeah, there's some amazing technology out there for sure.
And see, bringing it back to that whole thing of what is the narrative they're trying to push, if these things are created by the government and most likely been given to humanity through demonic means, this is the way I have understand it, but they want us to believe they're extraterrestrials, and the government is right alongside. And remember, in Nazi Germany, right, they had these flying discs. They were like bell-shaped, and Werner von Braun, if I'm saying it correctly, he was here with Project Paperclip and has headed up NASA and all of these things. So they've had this technology at least since the 30s and 40s. They're bringing it out here through our governments and things along those lines, putting out this narrative of extraterrestrials instead of what it really is. And again, they want you to see these things and believe the narrative that they're pushing.
And I can vouch. A good friend of mine's dad worked for NASA, not NASA, Area 51. And he come home, and a couple times I talked to him, but mostly he talked to his son, Kurt. And he was working side by side with an ex-SS officer. And he asked, where'd you learn this technology? And the guy started laughing. He pointed to the sky and he said, from them. So I know about half a dozen people that worked at Area 51 that don't really know each other because the facility is quite large and its department.
So who is them, and pointing up and saying who is them? So the question is who is them, and why do they typically signify from above, like the star people or something like that? And for me, it all comes back to, like I've said, and I don't know how much Ray's heard me talk about it, but Shannon's heard it and just sick of it probably. I've seen I've had so many experiences with angels manifesting themselves, and the way they do it for me, Ray, is they'll manifest them. I'll be at the beach or on a mountaintop typically, although right here it happened a few weeks ago above a church next to me. But they'll manifest as just like Ezekiel describes them, they look like a bright light wheel within a wheel, energy folding in on itself. And it's also said that they are bright white and round all about in Scripture. And that's exactly what I've seen. And in the book of Daniel, he sees them by the water's edge, and Moses seen them on the mountaintop, the God speaking through the whirlwind and it being a bright burning thing, which I've seen. And I don't know why, but I've seen them. But we have those angels up there, and they're up there. Okay. Well, who is it they're referring to when they talk about getting their technology from up there? Is it the fallen ones, or is it some other group of angels? What is it? Because personally, I don't believe, this is my personal opinion, I don't believe in some ball of dirt somewhere else and up in the sky somewhere billions of miles away, and there's other creatures living on it, and it's kind of like Earth in a way, but it's different, like they show in the movies, that kind of stuff. I think there's other dimensional realms where things are different and different in who knows what ways. And I think that there are these beings that exist that exist above, like for instance, the what they call what they call stars. If you start thinking about that, you'll figure out what those things actually are: the hosts of heaven, which are a type of angel or host. And then you also have other things like comets, like the Chinese recorded in the day and when Christ was crucified, and what these things actually are. Because see, NASA, they tell us that they're this and a snowball and this and the other thing, but NASA in Hebrew means deceive. It's a lie. They're liars. So I don't listen to liars. I listen to God and try to have Him lead me to the truth of what things are. But
Area 51 was brought about originally through a ritual that supposedly brought something over another dimensional plane, according to Aleister Crowley and all those works. Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard did this, what they call Babylon workings. And so it was brought about by ritual, trying to open up a demonic realm So that again, they're pushing this extraterrestrial narrative for covering up purposes, just like the Vatican is covering up the existence of these hairy beings, these hairy men. What narrative are they trying to hide, and why? Why are they pulling the wool over our eyes so we don't understand the truth? Is my question I'm posing.
Yeah.
Something to think about.
Well, they don't want you to know.
You can enslave
If
people.
you think you know, or you find out that you know, then they want to give you disinformation.
Right.
The safest thing to do is with them is don't go public with it. And if you do go public, they want you to look like a nutcase. Now, I live with a guy. I took him in. I mean, he was a friend of mine. I took him in, and again, he worked at Area 51. In the 1980s, they could see the other side. He was part of that project. He could actually see in the other dimension the demonic beings. Once they saw that they could see them, he said, became very interesting because in the monitor, you could see them walk up to you and look you over. But in front of you, you couldn't see it. So they had over 100 cameras. But what he had told me, they wanted to open a doorway to let them through. Now, whether for them to stay or a conversation, but I do have a friend, the father had up a project in Area 51. They opened the door, and about a 15 to 18-foot demon came out of it. They could barely push the creature back and close that door. So we're playing with Pandora's box. We're playing with things we should, and you have to understand these people are looking for power. They're looking for a position to really, my ex wrote
Live forever.
anything on Hitler. She was a history buff about Hitler. So I heard it all. But Hitler, basically, the Nazi movement was a cult. It really was a cult. The Jews were used for human sacrifice to spill blood. That's why Hitler said we're going to reign 1,000 years. So that whole movement, Operation Paperclip, like Shannon said, was 16. I think it was more than 1,600. Brought over, given new positions. The guy that headed up the OSS came to the president and said, these people are not murderers of the Jews. And he brought over 1,600 SS officers that were murderers and gave them new identities in the CIA. What a perfect cover. What a perfect cover. Because they were interested in genetic engineering, human making the super soldier.
And again, I have mentioned before on the show that Holocaust means burnt offerings. So that they didn't call it mass genocide. They didn't call it the many different things they could have called it. They specifically put a connotation of ritual within that. And, let's just mention that Werner von Braun had worked with the guy with the mouse, who did the mouse ears and all of that. America's seemingly favorite realm of entertainment for children. Why would the Nazi regime have anything to do with child entertainment? There's a lot that could be said on that level, and they were definitely occultists and trying to bring something about, and now it has spread all throughout the world because the Nazis never died out. They still have an underground hold on things. And
I really think that like Hitler, I don't think he died the way they said suicide. I mean, that's their favorite thing to say is somebody killed themselves, or
well, he did have a lookalike.
Which a lot of our politicians do.
Yeah.
Yep. Absolutely.
I've heard both sides. He's dead, but then I've heard he's alive or was alive. But
I did a bunch of research one time, and I can't prove this, but I think I traced him down to actually when he actually came to America and was residing in Maryland, which Maryland would have been appropriate. But yeah, he was in Maryland, and lived to be over 100 years old. But again, I'm not saying that's fact. I'm saying I can't prove it, but I did see some residual things that led me to think that. But you never know what really happened. But I can tell you this, that all the wars that have happened, whether it be World War I, World War II, all these things like that, they were all manipulated, controlled from both sides, and really just a genocide in themselves to destroy a group of young men, but at the same time then control everybody else back home. And it's really pretty simple once you have enough knowledge to understand what's going on in this world.
Well, you have to understand, you may think when I did investigation work, you have to think like they think, whether you believe it or not. You get rid of that. You have to think like they think, then you understand the crime.
Right. Yeah,
And my boss, she actually was teaching law enforcement occult crimes because they didn't have a clue. The McMartin preschool, I started in '83. The McMartin preschool is when Ted Gunderson came in with my boss. She was involved in that after the court hearings and everything, and he found evidence. But the reason I think that was blotched up, people said, oh, it was covered up. No, I think it was just blotched up because they didn't understand what they had. They didn't understand the extent of the crimes, and it didn't make sense. These kids telling weird stories for that time.
Well, I'd like to bring up the alien abduction stuff a little bit. Just there's a lot of parallels with ritualistic type things, and there's usually government involvement in some way, shape, or form. If people in their experiences are seeing science, guys in lab coats, they're seeing humans working alongside of things. They're talking about underground bases a lot, things along those lines. And I think that there is a reason they're using it as an alien abduction instead of telling the truth of what it is, because they want to get, again, that false narrative. Like I'm thinking, of course, fake alien invasion along those lines, instead of, the pit opening and the fallen ones returning and that kind of thing. I don't know if anyone has ever heard of Dr. Carter, but please look her up, because even back in the 80s and 90s, they were discovering evidence that things like virtual reality was being used, certain types of technologies that they had that we only know about today or we see in the movies that were apparent even back in the 80s and 90s. And there's a lot of parallels to, again, Nazi Germany, all of these things, underground bases, and this false narrative that we're getting told on quite a large, grand scale.
Right. You
Now,
said
let
something.
me say something in my investigation. They're really trying to create a whole generation, a whole nother army, another belief to literally take over the world. That's what it comes down to. To enslave human beings. That's what they want. You have a small group at the top that literally wants to control your life. In fact, when they do the things that they do, they actually get together and make bets on how many people are going to kill, being successful. That's their mindset. That's the evil that they are.
Yeah,
They're narcissistic to the extreme. They love doing what they're doing.
to an extreme no one watching this can understand or even comprehend.
Well, most people want to go about their lives, and they want, they have problems, and they want to live a wonderful life, and they want the home and the car. And these people are not like that. These people are evil to the extreme. And they really believe that they're, in their mindset, they're gods. They really have that mindset that somehow they come from different bloodlines like the Anunnaki and stuff, and they want you dead if if they can't completely control your life. You know, you're a toy, you're a thing, and they're yeah,
They like to play God for sure.
yeah. That's
I was
exactly
gonna,
their mindset. They
I
think
was gonna,
you're a cockroach unless they allow you to live. Okay, they seriously believe. We know about George Soros. He's actually said, you know, he hates human beings. That's the mindset.
What were you
Mhm.
going to say, Dan?
I was going to say in reference to something you had said just a little while ago about the pit. I want to help you understand, maybe not you as much, but anyone watching understand the pit. The pit, okay, what is left of the apple when you eat all the apple? The pit is left. It's the center of the toroidal form, the center of the torus, with the pit itself, the iris, actually the eye, just like the eye that you see in the background above us right now, the eye being the sun, the pit. Where did we say that when God returned, he would likely come in through the gateway when the moon moves in front of the sun, and a gateway is created at the right time, that Christ would return through that eye, that pupil. And the thing is we have an opposite as well, in which Apollyon or Satan's son, or whoever it is that would come out of the pit and do these things that are talked about in Revelations, is similarly the same thing. Because what is Satan? He's a liar and a copier. That's all he does, is he can't create, so he copies God. And so the pit is the toroidal field that exists in our world now. Christ is going to more like come from above, but somehow God, Apollyon, Satan, whatever, however it manifests, whatever name you want to use, as Revelations talks about it coming out of the pit, is talking about coming out of the eye of the Taurus. Now, what is CERN building over there right now? They build a star in a bottle, a toroidal field that exists just like the sun inside of a controlled man-made environment. They're building a home for something to come out of the pit and into, and be able to exist in our reality, but yet still be out of our reality, where it can be there, and they can control it, and they can communicate with it, and it's in our world, but yet still exist in light only. Now, there's your pit.
Mm-hmm. Yep. I was just going to say CERN, right?
And guess where
When
my
you-
great grandfather's from? Switzerland.
Yeah. You know, it where they built CERN, a portion of it is sitting right on top or underneath where the original temple of Apollyon was. So that tells you right there that there's some interesting connections with that.
Absolutely.
I'm not sure if you've ever seen Childhood's End. They did like a small little mini series, I think, based off of that book. And in the film, well, also in the book, they don't show themselves to the people. They arrive, but they haven't shown themselves to the people for quite some time, except for like a handful of people that they're working with and kind of manipulating. And they say they don't want to either, that they're helping us, that they're trying to save the world in a sense, but really they're just trying to take certain things because they know that the planet is going to die, something cataclysmic is going to happen. When they finally actually show themselves, I mean, he literally looks like the depiction of Satan, and then he comes out with these two children
Right.
by his side, just like the statue of Baphomet. So even in that storyline, they're showing you what these aliens really are. And I truly believe it's all about that pit opening, not them coming from outer space.
Look at this way. When
they're
you
going
look
to
at the
cross
car,
the veil.
you know, we
Right.
always refer to the used car salesman, you know, that's what they are. They want to sell you a lie. So they're going to tell you different things for you to buy into it. I know somebody from the State Department. We had some serious conversations, very old now. I tried to get him on tape. He said, no, he won't do it. There's 176 different species. None of them like us. Some will tolerate us, some will play us, but none of them like us. And now we have people coming out of the Pentagon and some other departments of government saying we should have nothing to do with these aliens because it's demonic. They actually had two scientists for 10 years take 2,000 cases, examine them on UFOs and aliens and people that were abducted by them. And they, at the end of the 10 years, they said, we have one thing to say about the whole thing in our studies. It's demonic, have nothing to do with it.
Again, I like to bring up Phil Schneider, who came out with his testimony in the 90s, who died a very interesting, mysterious type of death. But he also believed that they were demonic and evil and encouraged people to learn about that.
And he also said they're eating us.
Yeah.
We're delicacy to them, especially babies.
Which brings me back to Dr. Carla Turner, because a lot of the abductee stories mention that they had been forced to take part in dismembering people and putting them on some type of machine for it to be used as food. And that, you know, that's probably really delving into some horrific things that maybe we don't necessarily want to have to talk about right now.
But Ted Gunderson, he worked with our agency. He overlapped with our agency. He was in contact with Phil Schneider and believed him. Yeah, believed him. And Ted was he was quite a guy for investigation. He told us things about the Kennedy assassination, Marilyn Monroe, because he was involved in that investigation. The media and there's people that head up government want you to believe one thing, but if you delve into the evidence, it tells you another thing. There again, they know they're in control. They don't care what you think because they know that you're not in a position of authority and there's nothing that you can do. If you're in the media and you're making too much noise, they have ways of dealing with you. Personally, with the Roswell crash, a good friend of mine, his dad, again, I said worked at Area 51. He met with a team of scientists that met with the daughter when she was a little girl from the crash. Her father buried some of the parts. He personally saw the parts of the Roswell crash. That was back in 1978. I had an opportunity to go, but I was too busy being young. And I wish I'd gone, but I said, no, I don't want to deal with that. You know, I just thought it was a bunch of hocus pocus, you know. Yeah. Unfortunately, I missed out on that opportunity. But he said the parts were, there was an I-beam, you could twist it. It was super. He said everything was extremely light. All the parts had strange writing on it, almost like Egyptian, but it wasn't Egyptian. He said it was this pale gray. He said there was a sheet like aluminum foil, but you could crinkle it up. It would wrinkle up like in a little ball, but you let go of it, it opened back up and no wrinkles in it. So he was absolutely convinced that this was, you know, from the Roswell crash. And they knew her father, they believe he stole some of the stuff and did something with it. Outside of that, I don't know much more about the story.
Right.
So I hope that helps your audience, you know, to give a little extra to whether they believe or don't believe?
Well, ultimately, I just want to point out, at least from my belief and my perspective, is that we're talking about, they like to call them aliens. We're talking about demonic spirits that are extra dimensional, just like angels are extra dimensional. And some of these spirits, however, are trapped and cast into the earth, which means cast into the world, meaning they're trapped in the shoal below. They're trapped below and they can't come up out of the pit again until they're assisted, or until the appointed time when they've been appointed for judgment. But they're trying to assist them to come through. I think it was, what was that guy's name? Not like I'm a fan of his, but Rhodey, something other Rose.
Jordy Rose, or
Jordy
yeah,
Rose,
Jordy
yeah,
Rose.
talking about CERN and such, and saying that they're working on open the pit, and something might come through, or they might send something through. And they, of course, he's being a cultic in his words, but at the same time, he's telling you what they're doing, and they're talking about the pit, opening up the pit, or piercing the veil, renting the veil, and allowing things that are not supposed to be allowed here to come here. And I think there's some of these things already going on. And they talk about controlling the weather and you'll control the world. Why do you think they say that? Because they mean it in the way that I understand it. The world is a toroidal field, and if you can control the weather, you can control the world. Because if you're controlling the weather is controlled by toroidal fields. The low pressures, high pressures, hurricanes, tornadoes, it's all toroidal based. And if you can control a supercell thunderstorm and make it powerful enough, you have to realize that is a gateway. And it can allow even things to manifest across the veil, even in the situations where you may have a really severe thunderstorm or a really severe hurricane. The eye of the storm itself can manifest or potentially be a gateway. Yeah, that's how it all works. I know it's hard for a lot of people, even some of the people listening, to understand this, but trust me, I've dedicated, instead of going out and making buku bucks and spending the rest of my life in luxury using my intelligence, I chose to take my intelligence and give it to a gift to everyone. And that's what this show is about. And I've spent the last 13 years dedicating every moment, 7 days a week. Literally, you think I'm kidding, but I'm not. I sleep, walk, drink, eat, and everything this. And I wake up every morning discerning the true answers behind the things that are going on in our world and how this world works. And when you ask, the Father will answer, and He has led me to so many truths. But one of the greatest truths He ever led me to was understanding that we live in a world. And people want to talk about, well, is it flat? Is it this? You're missing the point. No, it's not a ball. So whatever you want to call it past that, but it's a world. It's a toroidal field that we exist in, and we exist in the eye of that toroidal field. And the Bible tells you all about it. It says God speaks out of the whirlwind. What is a whirlwind? A whirlwind is a toroidal movement of something, air, energy, whatever. And I thank God that God has shown me the angels and brought them to me so that way I could see this with my own eyes and stand there and analyze it and learn from it. So we're not talking about aliens from another planet when we're talking here. We're talking beings and entities that can cross the veil in the right circumstances, and they're using like CERN and many other tools, including.
Can I interject something here for you?
Sure.
So my friend, he's captain. He was top secret stuff at Area 51. He explained things to me about this kind of CERN stuff where they're opening up gateways. And I said, I have one question. What's their plan if they open up a gateway and things get out of control? What does your department heads tell you? And it doesn't surprise me. He said, we'll worry about it when it happens.
they definitely kind of want that to happen. I think.
I mean,
that chaos.
we'll worry about the chaos if it gets out of control when it happens. We don't really have a plan.
The comment.
When you're trying to do things that you've never done, or at least have never successfully been done.
The comment you just had up about Elon, he also talked about how they were trying to summon the demons. Even Jordy Rose even brings that up when he was talking about the D-Wave on that infamous talk. But, as you were mentioning with the weather warfare, that is a real thing. There are government documents that you can look up yourself on the internet that talk all about how they use weather as warfare against us, against war factions. I mean, there was a lot of talk about even in Vietnam where it rained so much. It was just kind of impossible that was a natural occurrence. And yes, they used weather to win that war.
By manipulating the electrical fields, the toroidal fields within
I have to go one step farther with you guys on this. I want you to think about this. Paint. You can use paint to protect like the shuttlecraft, stuff like that. But you can also use paint to magnify any microwaves. In other words, the microwave doesn't harm you. But let's just say you paint a room with a certain kind of paint and you send a microwave into that room, it generates a heat that would kill you.
Daniel has covered this before, like things about Lahaina that were mentioned and brought up about the blue roofs and the things that were blue that weren't touched and things along those lines, because color emits a frequency and they can program these lasers to either harm or not harm a specific color frequency.
So this is why, and I say this to your audience, you need a close relationship with God, because he's the one that can protect you from all of it. He's protected me so many times out there in the field with miracles. I shouldn't even be here. I mean, they even poisoned me. They killed my dog. But he said, no, it's not your time. So I encourage your audience to really seek out God, to really seek and get close to him, because none of us can escape this except through God.
That's right.
Amen.
Except through the truth, which is God, which is the word.
The truth.
Well, they are afraid of us. They are afraid of that we come together as a number, because there's, that's why they want to bring the population down and be able to control you, especially control you, brainwash you. And I've dealt with it all. I know how they operate. I know how they think. I know what they're up to. And quite frankly, they're superstitious because I didn't die. They're afraid of me. They're serious. I've run into them a handful of times because they let me know that they're around, but I can see in their eyes they're afraid of me because I didn't die. When they tried to come in, I didn't die.
We've got a few people that are involved and around this show that I'm sure they're afraid of. And they've shown it, but all you do is you just continue to walk forward in faith and know that ultimately it's Father's choice. Father can intervene and save you in less than the flash of a spark. You can strike a match and God can be here faster than it can even flame, because God is already here. He is within all and around all and is all. And only through loss of faith and only through choice can they acquire you or your soul. So you just have to realize that, not you, Ray, but anyone listening, is that you have the choice to have the faith and realize the things that we're speaking here are true things or not. And with that choice is a lot comes along, a lot of weight with that choice.
Well, there's a price for freedom. You know, God's given us the freedom to make choice. You know, I've had people and preachers say, well, I'm going to say to that person, no, you're not. It's not your business. It's your testimony, and that's it.
Amen.
If they want to reject God, God lets them. It hurts him. It breaks his heart. But to have the ability to make a choice is a gift. It seriously is a gift.
Yeah.
And people might get upset at God, and it's like, well, he's giving you freedom to make bad choices. It's not God's fault.
Mhm.
But how
It's
can you
like
blame?
it's like letting your child go out and play in the yard.
Yeah.
You know they're going to end up hurt, but how else are they going to learn if they can't learn through falling down? Some people say, "Why, God, did you allow that to happen?" Use the word hate when related to God, or I don't believe in you. You want to let my son die, or you want to let this happen or that happen. It's the choices of the people that are allowing these things to happen. You choose where you are, where you go,
Well,
what
I
you
want
do.
your
Choices.
audience to think of this. You make a wrong choice. You want your freedom. You don't want to listen to God. You don't want to obey his rules or regulations or however you think. But yet when things go wrong, you want to blame him for making wrong choices.
And I'll interject a little bit with that. Satan wants to control you. He wants to control your mind, take away your freedom of choice, your ability to choose whichever direction you want to go. But the ultimate love by the Father, God, is that he has given you that choice. That is love. He has given you the ability to choose for yourself and to really come to him as you through your choice. But Satan doesn't want that. So really, who really loves you? What what I'm saying? At least that's my interjection.
Yeah, no, yeah, all good, all excellent advice. Um, we're heading here towards the end of the show, guys. So, Ray, can you tell us a little bit about your your script and what you got going on around that subject matter, sir?
Well, I call it Manacle Hunt because it's about trafficking. That was my investigation world. It gets into genetic engineering. I have a character that it's all the characters are fictional. The stories, um, the premise of the whole script is about what's really going on. Um, yes, I'll have some stories in there that actually happen, but I'm trying to give you the bigger picture. And one of the characters I have is Axelvar. Really unique character. He's a priest. He's been genetically engineered by the government to believe that he came from another planet. When he finds out, he becomes sort of like the good guy in helping the investigators to uncover the trafficking and rescue people out of it. Again, it's kind of in the direction of sci-fi, but there's a lot of truth to the story because a friend of mine that lived with me that did investigation work worked on the X-Files. That's all I'll say about that. And he wrote partial truths in the X-Files. So he gave me some insight. I'm not a writer. I don't plan on being a writer, but I have a lot of stories. Shannon, bless her heart, she's going to get in and kind of clean it up. I want a woman's perspective to it. When I originally wrote it, because the person who was helping me was used to be a producer for National Geographic, and she's done 6 features in her background into certain law enforcement. When she read my cases, she said, I can't do this. This is too horrible. The audience will not accept this. It's too gory. So I realized I couldn't put it in. I had to rewrite it. I had to do it so the audience can receive it. What happened with the CIA is they get people to do trafficking, catch them, then they say, you're going to work for us or you go to jail. So if you catch somebody that works for the CIA, and this is what happened to Ted Gunderson, you start naming CIA agents who were
Sounds
involved.
kind of like the war on drugs, the way they use it.
Mm-hmm.
They basically tell you you can't touch somebody that, whether it's a pedophile or somebody trafficking, that you can't touch them because of national security. So they're protected. I know somebody right now is sort of a friend of mine. He said, I could kill you right here, right now, because of his background and who he's with, the agency. You can't touch me. And he'd be in big trouble, but they make it go away. They make it go away. So, yeah, I have an advantage than most people because of all the knowledge and things I've accumulated through the years. I'm not going to get out there and try to convince people. You know, a lot of people don't want to see it. They don't want to hear it. They don't want, but these people eventually want to control the world. The Third Reich never died. Reich means empire. In fact, there's a lot of books. The Fourth Reich is going to rise again. The Reich's going to rise again, and you can call it anything you want, but it's a group of people that want a one world government. This has happened since Nimrod. There's different kingdoms have risen up and tried to take over the world, and not successful. God does not want that. The only way it's going to
I think the periods of time throughout history that this is, we can look back biblically in some other old scripts, but really, if you look, the most interesting place to look at the topography of the world, look at the rocks, what was alive previously in this world, the petrified remains of things. When you start really looking closely at these things, you have to realize that this world has went around a number of times. The beginning has happened and the end has happened, and the beginning has happened and the end has happened. The beginning has happened and the end has happened. They call it Ouroboros, or the repeating pattern, that kind of thing. And it's obvious that they tried this so many times. And is this the greatest time they've ever tried it? We don't even really know. But we know that in the past, they tried to build things to heaven with like stones and other things and lesser levels of technology, maybe. But this time, they've got Elon, basically Satan's right-hand man almost. He's got the sky covered in his starlinks. Star, another word for basically host of heaven. And he's got the sky covered with them, literally trying to take over heaven and control the eye of God, the toroidal field where we exist. He's trying to take over and control it, literally.
And the Neuralink that he wants to put in our brains.
Say what, Shannon?
Not to mention also the Neuralink that he wants to put in our brains.
He wants to link that neuro too.
Right.
Well, what people got to understand about the chip will change your DNA. I know people that know all about the chip, the right hand, the forehead, which the chip is kept charged by the heat of your body. So the two hottest places you have is the right hand and your forehead. And the Bible says right hand, forehead. If you go back to the Greek, it doesn't say a mark of the beast. It says they'll prick your flesh with the mark of the beast. And it'll change your DNA. Mm-hmm. Once you take that chip, you are subject to them. They're going to take over your mind, your heart, your body, your thinking. You're basically going to be a robot.
And the Starlink, I'm sure, has a big part in that as well. I mean, in 1999, I was told by the son of one of the men who created the chip about all these things that were going to happen, including 9/11 before that happened and all of that, which his sister, actually, he said was very evil, is one of the head CEOs of NOAA, which, the national weather manipulator and all that. So it all kind of comes in full circle. There's a lot to be said about this mark, that this change in DNA to where you won't be able to think for yourself. You will no longer be able to have choice. You've given your allegiance to Satan, basically. But, it's interesting how we all kind of end up full circle, because we did start this program talking about the cover up from the Vatican and the Sistine Chapel with the hairy men. And I know for a fact that the Vatican and other things have been hiding the fact that there are giants and things part of the topography that we think are one thing, but really are another, that they have used, as Daniel had mentioned before, to build things. This stone might really be flesh. And so, it all kind of comes back full circle, and there's a lot of cover up with that.
When you understand that you can walk outside right now and scoop up the soil in your hands, and everything that is in your hands has lived before. You think it's just dirt. You think it's just little pebbles and rocks, but it's all walked or crawled or lived in a tree. It's all the same. And when you dig down and you can't dig any further because you find a rock, that rock has lived. When you find the earth and find this truth, I'm telling you, just found the body. Like the body, I would have it too difficult for me to explain right now, but everything has lived before, these rocks. So they will go down and they'll mine, they'll find out where there's a body of a fallen one at. They'll mine that out and build their temple out of it, because that's their God they're worshiping. Why would you not want to build it out of the flesh, the petrified stone flesh of your God, or of one of his offspring that walked the earth before? Now, I can't prove this, but I believe I'm right.
Have you heard of the new discovery they found? The woman's egg sends a signal out and picks the sperm. They used to think it was the strongest sperm that get to the egg. It actually sends a signal out to the sperm to penetrate the egg. And they believe now that's an intelligent design that's sending that signal that's making you and who you are.
Well, and even still in the Bible, it talks about too how God made us from the clay of the earth. There's
we are.
It all
Everything else is too.
It's full circle.
And Einstein in the beginning was atheist, but in the end he said there's a maker. We're the ones screwing it up. It's perfectly made, but we're the ones messing it all up. So
Right.
My suggestion to your audience, if you really want to know God, ask him. Tell him you don't want to lie. You want the truth. You want to follow the truth. Not my truth, not your truth, not Shannon's truth, not somebody out there in the street's truth, but the God that made you's truth. And if you look at the creation, I'm watching people now getting little pet spiders and loving them. And the spider projects, you can see the spider in the way it's reacting. It wants the love. What is God? God is love. God is love.
Yep. Absolutely.
And there's not a person out there that God won't forgive. Seriously. I don't care if you're in the occult. I don't care. I know a lot of people that have done things to children. They were victims before they became the perpetrator. God will forgive you. It's got to come out of your mouth asking him to forgive you. It's that simple. He's not sitting there saying, oh, I'm going to strike you down because you're evil. People don't understand how God looks at us. We are not perfect. If you think one wrong thing, under the condemnation, you come under the condemnation of sin. You're judged under death. God world is perfect. You don't think that way ever. So that's why he has forgiveness. That's why I want the audience to think this way. Yeah. God says, I've set down judgment on your wrongdoing. I want you to pay attention to this, audience. I'm not going to send an angel. I'm not going to send an animal, although he did sacrifice animals, which just covering. He said, I'm going to send the very best. I'm going to show you how much I love you. I'm not going to just say I would die for you. I'm going to send myself to die for you. For you. That's how much I love you. Because I believe God allowed it to go this direction because angels were made perfect and Lucifer came against God. So we're made in God's image. Angels aren't. They're angelic. They're servants. But we're made in his image. We're the closest thing to his image. We're heirs of the Most High, or supposed to be.
Who was it in the Bible who God, was it Abraham or who was it that he told him to take his son out and he was going to tell him? Okay. So he said, he told Abraham he was going to have to sacrifice his son. Right?
Yep.
So he had to prove that he was willing to sacrifice his own self, his son, his firstborn, in order to show his faith and his righteousness and his love of his father. And of course, he was able to prove that to God. And so it's very similar to how God sent himself, a copy of himself in the image of, a human being here, the same in that same manner. And so maybe that'll help some people relate and click, maybe see what's being said here, how, because many people have said these things many times, but everybody's just, they want to, in their mind, they want to glaze over it like, oh yeah, we're that before, but you got to really realize what went down, and it really went down.
Well, people can research Ron Wyatt. Ron Wyatt, I think he died in 1999. He found the Ark of the Covenant. The government now has just come out and said we have the Ark of the Covenant, the real Ark. There was another one made, a fake one. It was because Solomon fell and the priests were afraid of God, so they made a fake one, which Ethiopia has that. So, and the DNA that they found there's 48 chromosomes.
We have 46, but they only found 23 from the mother's side, from Mary, and one Y chromosome from an unearthly source,
which proves the deity of Christ. And then they scraped the blood off the ceiling because it says in the Old Testament his blood would drip on the mercy seat. Okay, well, they found the 3 peg holes. The center one had a crack from the earthquake. His blood dripped down 20 feet, 16 to 20 feet on top of the Ark of the Covenant. And they scraped it, and it's living. 2,000-year-old blood living. It's living.
And Shannon and I have been doing shows recently showing how that our head, in our foreheads and our head, and the location that you're talking about is in Golgotha, which is the skull, and the place of the crucifixion was right here in the middle of the skull between the 2 thieves, which are the eyes. And it's not by chance that place is called Golgotha, and that there's a crack right here within all of our skulls that's been sealed, and it's no longer there. You can see it, but it was sealed. And that the image of the ethoid bone and the sphenoid bone that is in our foreheads are in the exact image of the Ark of the Covenant, as well as the crucifixion location, and you even have the cross right here, which is called the Christi Galli, right in your forehead. Those are on previous shows right here on this channel, and so I greatly appreciate you bringing that up, Ray. And it's about time for us to close ourselves out here today, guys. We're right at about an hour and a half, and we try to keep it at an hour and a half or less. So I surely greatly appreciate Ray being here today and sharing some of his knowledge I can tell he's a man of great knowledge and great experience in this world. And I'm very proud to have him here
And
be a
thank you
part.
for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome, Ray. And of course, I can't thank my co-host enough. She's right there all the time and supporting this work and supporting this channel and assisting me. And so I'm very proud of her as well. And especially too, also all of y'all guys in the comments and the people that are viewing this. You think that you're just a viewer, but you're not. You're not just a viewer. You're not just a number. I love you. Father knows you're watching. He knows you're learning. He knows you're seeking the truth, and he's going to show it to you. Just keep asking, just like I do. Ask him. Ask him morning, noon, and night. Say, Father, please show me the real truth, the whole truth, everything. I want to know it. And he will unfold it for you, but you're going to then have to pay attention because he doesn't always just say, hey, here it is. He's very subtle. He's a gentle voice. He's a quiet voice in your head, the one that you think that you ain't your thoughts, but they're there sometimes. A lot of times that's that quiet voice. Listen to it. Pay attention to the things around you when that butterfly shows up on the porch when you were just inside researching the Ethelweight bone. And
I have to say one more too, Daniel, when you say voice. I've been out there in the field where I've had God a few times, a very loud voice tell me no. That it shook my person and I went the other direction. He was saving my life.
Yep, he'll do that. Father has spoken either directly or through an angel directly to me before. And the words I remember boldly the most is get up and walk out now. And I did, and everything went great because I listened to his voice. And if you ask him to speak to you and you ask him to come into your life, he will, but he's not going to force himself on you. He's a loving and caring Father, and he's going to be gentle about it. But he does want you to ask him to come in, but he also wants you to tell all the other gods in your life to get out.
Amen.
Any idols or any other things that you have in your household, you need to clean your house out, get it clean, and ask the real Father to come in because you'll not only come into your house, you'll come in
for you. Just real quick story. No, I got to say this. I met a guy that was mafia, and he said God spoke to him in an audio voice in his front yard. He said his entire house and front yard shook, while the rest of the neighborhood did not shake. Now he follows God.
That'll wake you up.
Capable. He's quite capable.
That will wake up and do.
Well, you guys are all part of the body of Christ, and we thank you for, joining in on the People's show. And I'd also like to remind you to come back and find out what in the supernatural is going on.
Indeed, and why not share this with some other people, some friends or something, and invite them. Say, hey, watch a couple of these supernatural show things. They're not what you're expecting when you see the name the supernatural show. You think it's something like you've seen on TV or something like that. It's not. We tell the truth here. So with that being said, guys, I love you. We love you. Our Father in heaven, most importantly, loves you. Just wants to hear from you. If you ain't talked to your Father in a long time, how do you think your old Father feels? He'd like to hear from you. I love you also. And we'll see you next time here on the Supernatural Show. Bye-bye.
Thank you.